Hi, I'm Tom. Welcome to Ledgemere Farm. Even though I've been around farming my entire life and I've always had a passion for agriculture, there's a lot of things that I didn't really know until I became a farmer myself. And even though I grew up on a farm, there were just so many things that were behind the scenes that I didn't know about. And some of those things I want to share with you today. And there's really no rhyme or reason to the sequence of them, but I hope you'll bear with me until the end because I feel like there's a lot of good information that I want to share with you, particularly those of you who are just starting out with farming. As a kid growing up in the 1970s, there were a lot of dairy farms around, and conventional agriculture was just it was just how it was, and I didn't know any different. I always played farm, and my friends and I, we just didn't know anything different other than agriculture, and it just seemed like a natural progression for me that someday I would have my own farm. And a lot of things have changed since the 1970s, of course, and one of the most important things that I think I've learned over the course of the years is just how expensive it is to get into farming, and it's kind of one of the reasons why a lot of farmers obviously aren't farmers anymore. I think a lot about my father, and I remember a lot of stories that he would talk about growing up during the Depression, and they always had a garden. They always had a big garden, and my grandmother would put up tons of green beans, and so I remember my father just saying how much he hated green beans because that was what they ate all the time, was green beans. But he said growing up during the Depression, you had to have a garden or you wouldn't eat, and so that made sense to me. And then he just went on to say, you know, in today's, it's just cheaper to go to the supermarket and buy food rather than trying to grow it. But he was in his late 50s by then, and I think he just didn't understand, you know, the importance of knowing where your food came from, because that had been basically bred out of us by the 1970s and 80s. People just weren't. They just didn't understand anymore. They just thought the food. Where does your food come from? Well, the supermarket, of course, right? And that was the thing. And so where am I going with this? Well, I think what I'm trying to say, and maybe a roundabout way, but equating it to a personal level, is at some point we got away from our food supply, and we just bought everything at the supermarket without really understanding the repercussions of it. So before I retired from the military, I had bought this old farm that was part of my family, and I wanted to do everything. I just was gung-ho. Let's do animals, fruits, vegetables, maple syrup, all the things. I wanted to do all the things because I was so excited to be here, and I just wanted to do everything. It made me crazy because it made everybody around me crazy because I just was go, go, go all the time, one thing to another. And so one thing that I want to impart upon you is that before you start your endeavor, think about what you're most passionate about, because ultimately you can't do everything, and the labor source that's going to have to do all those things has to come from somewhere. My children had done a lot, which I'm very grateful for them, and I hope that I have taught them some skills that'll be beneficial to them later on in life, as I learned when I was a child. But the takeaway from this is you may have a lot of interests, but you can't fulfill all of them, and you need to maybe work with some people who have the same interests to see if that's really what you want to pursue before you pursue it. Make sure that you are 100% in. And also keep in mind that you need to think about what enterprises can support another enterprise. For example, if you have chickens and you want to get some ducks and geese, they can all share kind of the same living space to some degree. Sheep and cows can share the same pastures. Now, when you start talking about, I want to have greenhouses and maple syrup and vegetables and hoop houses and animals, now you're talking vastly different infrastructure for each one, and so you're going to have to come up with the capital, the upfront capital to start that enterprise. I couldn't do everything the right way, so it was just a get or done mentality, and unfortunately that didn't really work out in the long run. I ended up burning myself out, burning out my family, and burning through a lot of money. If there are a lot of things that you're interested in, I suggest that you maybe find some people in your vicinity who are doing the things that you want to do. And I'm sure they would love to have the help, because I don't know a farmer who doesn't love to have help. Go work with them for a little bit and make sure that's something that you're passionate about before you actually do it. Now, when you get an enterprise, it's easy to move into a similar enterprise. For example, if you have chickens and you want ducks and geese, a lot of those facilities can be combined to work for all three. If you have sheep and you want cattle, well, the sheep fence will also hold the cattle in, and they eat the same feed for the most part. So it makes sense that you could go to the next enterprise in the same kind of realm. What's difficult is when you have livestock and then you want to, say, do maple syrup, or you want vegetables. Well, now very few of the facilities, for one, can be crossed over to another. So now you've got to come up with capital to finance that next enterprise that you want to do. And so you may or may not have really worked out a market for that. But everything with agriculture is just so expensive, as with any other endeavor. You know, any business startup is just insurmountable costs, it seems like. And I really feel like the only people who make money with small-scale farming are the people who are selling equipment to the small-scale farmer. So you kind of have to look at it as, I really want to just be in control of my own food supply. So if you can adapt the mentality of, how much would it cost me to buy grass-fed beef or organic tomatoes, and then you do that, that can work out for you. And watching, you know, where your food actually comes from, it really kind of glued the pieces together for me. I had a desire to grow my own food because I like it. I love animals and I love to grow things. And add that with knowing where your food comes from and what actually goes into the food that's your food. If that makes any sense, that has kind of been the missing link for me. So I just encourage you to really do your homework, scout around, and see what the niche is that you want to fill. A lot of people have said this to me. They've said, farm your passion. What are you really passionate about as a farmer? I love animals. I just love animals. I've always loved animals. They just have a soft spot in my heart. So I knew I had to have animals. But having said that, you have to have a market for the animals, unless you're running a petting zoo, which I absolutely am not. So farm your passion. I love cows. I love sheep. We have cows and sheep. What is your land actually suited to grow? My land here is at the top of a mountain. It's very rocky and rough. The soils are very poor. And fortunately, I knew the history of this farm. This farm has always been a sheep farm. Since its inception in 1840, there's been sheep here, and it's just a perfect farm for sheep. They do really well here, and I mix them with the cows. It's perfect. Sometimes I wish I could grow more corn to feed my cows, but that's impossible because it's a rock pile. I can't even grow my own hay here. I have to get it from somewhere else. So if you want to, whatever endeavor that you want to get into, you want to make sure that your land is suitable for that. And if vegetable farming, you want to have a soil test done. I would even go to your local USDA office and talk to them, because you're going to have to register your farm anyway if you ever want any help from NRCS. But those people know the territory. They may not know your farm in particular, but they know, the county. Each county has its own USDA office, and so they're going to be able to help you. Water. Nobody talks about water. I've looked at all these YouTube videos and the internet, and nobody says anything about water. But if you want to put up a high tunnel, those things use an enormous amount of water, and so you want to make sure that you have a source of water available. And they'll tell you that up front when you want to get the high tunnel. Do you have water? Fortunately, this farm has excellent water, and because I got a mortgage through the Department of Veterans Affairs, I had to have my water tested. So I know the water is palatable. I know that we can drink it. I know I can feed it to my animals. And you know, the last thing you want to do is buy a piece of land and you don't own the water rights to it, or the water is poor, you can't drink it, or there's just no water at all and you can't water your crops. And this happens all the time. There's a reason sometimes why the land might be cheap, and hopefully it's not your water, because you are dead in the water, literally. One of the toughest things about being a farmer, and this really affects me because I'm a passionate person and I'm very sensitive. I've always loved animals, and death is everywhere on a farm. It's everywhere. It just hits you. It comes out of nowhere. You wake up one day and you've got an animal down. You might have some birds dead in your chicken coop. Something breaks in and eats something. It's just, or you plant crops and you get a drought and you can't water it and then they die. You might get a frost. I could go on and on and on, but it really is something that is in your face all the time. And people use the analogy, if you have livestock, you're gonna have dead stock, and that is true. You could have a cow die during birth, and then you lose it. You lose the cow and the calf, or you stillbirth lambs. It's just always there, and hopefully the good outweighs the bad, because we have a lot of good animals born, and so the joy those bring me, it doesn't make the sadness go away, because the sadness is always there, right? But at least the life that comes sometimes hopefully will soften the life that goes away. Lifestyle, and people will tell you this too, it's not a 5-day-a-week job. It's not 9 to 5. It is, the military and working for the phone company kind of set me up for this, because I was just used to being on call all the time. But when you're a farmer, there's unexpected things all the time that need your attention right now, not after lunch, not tomorrow, right this second. And that could happen anytime. In Murphy's Law, seems like it always happens when you least are prepared to handle it. And so there's nothing I can tell you that's going to make you prepared for what's going to happen, but be flexible, be prepared, and just always know in the back of your mind that something's always going to happen. You're always going to lose power, a pipe burst, an animal struggling with labor, your fences got knocked down. I could go on, and I think that every homeowner knows this to some extent, that it's just like everything that could go wrong does. Last thing, and this is something I struggle with too, because you're going to fail as a farmer. You're always going to be something you're going to fail at, and that's okay. But the way I am, I feel like I failed at it. That means I'm a failure as a person because I failed. But I keep trying to tell myself that because I failed, I'm going to get up and I'm going to do it again, and the next time I won't fail. And that, there's another old saying, and I'm a great person about old sayings, is the guy who succeeded was the guy who got up one more time than he failed. And so I'm just hoping that I can keep getting up every time I fall down. But just know that when you're a farmer, you're going to fail pretty much at something all the time. You're going to fail at something all the time, and that's okay. It's okay. Just when you walk away from that failure, hopefully you're taking back something valuable. You know what you did wrong, and then hopefully you won't make that mistake again next time. And hopefully it'll build some resilience in you so that you are more able to deal with the failure. And when I say failures, I mean, you thought you were going to get into this enterprise and you really thought it was going to work out, but it didn't. Or you really thought that you took care of that. You've got an animal who was ill, was down, and you really thought that you had done everything that you could, and you thought that animal was going to be fine. And then you come back out later, and unfortunately that animal has passed away. And it really can knock you down. But don't give up. That's not a reason to give up. That's a reason to succeed next time. So I really hope that these things are something that you think about when you want to get into farming, or a homestead farm or whatever. And I hope it's been helpful. I really hope that if you have any questions or comments that will reach out to me, because I'm not an expert at anything. I'm an expert at nothing. And my father always say, jack of all trades and a master of none. Well, that's me. And as a farmer, you really have to be a jack of all trades. And that's another whole video. But anyway, I really appreciate you watching these videos, and thank you for all your support, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks for watching.